Everyone thought Toyota was losing, while Tesla dominated headlines and Chinese brands like BYD flooded the market with fully electric cars. Toyota kept doing something almost nobody respected anymore: building hybrids. Analysts called the company too slow. Critics said it was stuck in the past. And for a while, it actually looked like they were right. Because while the world was obsessing over range numbers, charging speeds, and futuristic EV launches, Toyota stayed unusually quiet. Then suddenly, it revealed the 2026 RAV4 plug-in hybrid, and the reaction caught the entire industry off guard. Not because it was fully electric, but because it wasn't. This SUV delivered over 320 horsepower, electric-only driving for daily commutes, impressive fuel economy, all-wheel drive, and long-distance capability without depending entirely on charging stations. And almost overnight, people started asking a very uncomfortable question. What if Toyota saw something the rest of the industry ignored? For years, the automotive world treated EVs like an inevitable destination. Every major company rushed toward the same future at full speed. Governments pushed incentives. Investors rewarded E-first companies. Tesla became the symbol of innovation itself. Even traditional automakers began announcing timelines to phase out gasoline completely. And in the middle of all that noise, Toyota looked strangely disconnected from the trend. The company kept talking about hybrids, plug-in hybrids, hydrogen, and something it called a multi-path strategy. To many people, that sounded like hesitation. But Toyota wasn't hesitating. It was watching, because behind the scenes, the company understood something most executives didn't want to say publicly. The world was not moving at the same speed everywhere. In cities like Los Angeles, Shanghai, or Oslo, EV ownership made sense. Charging stations were growing fast. Infrastructure was improving. But outside those places, reality looked very different. Millions of people still lived in areas where charging was unreliable, inconvenient, or simply unavailable. Long-distance travel still created anxiety for many drivers. Apartment owners often had nowhere to charge overnight. And in developing markets, the idea of switching entirely to EVs felt unrealistic for the near future. Toyota noticed that gap early. And instead of forcing customers into one solution, it started building vehicles designed around flexibility. At first, nobody paid much attention to that strategy, but then the numbers started becoming impossible to ignore. Toyota wasn't surviving with hybrids. It was dominating with them. The company was quietly selling millions of hybrid vehicles every single year across the world. In some markets, Toyota hybrids became so common, people barely thought about them anymore. They just worked. Reliable, efficient, familiar. While other automakers chased headlines, Toyota built trust. And trust is harder to replace than technology. But this only becomes important once you understand what Toyota secretly changed inside the new RAV4. Because the 2026 RAV plug-in hybrid is not just another hybrid SUV. Toyota rebuilt the entire system around one idea: eliminate compromise. Normally, hybrid vehicles force drivers to sacrifice something. Either the performance feels weak, the electric range feels useless, or the driving experience feels disconnected. Toyota knew that. So instead of making the RAV4 feel like a transition vehicle, it engineered it to feel complete. Under the hood sits a 2.5-liter engine, working together with multiple electric motors to produce over 320 horsepower. That number alone shocked many people because it pushed the RAV4 into performance territory. But the real surprise wasn't the speed. It was how the vehicle delivered it. In city driving, the RAV4 can move silently on electric power alone. No engine noise, no fuel consumption. For many drivers, that electric range covers their entire daily commute, which means some owners may go days without using gasoline at all. But unlike a fully electric vehicle, the moment the battery gets low, nothing changes emotionally for the driver. No panic, no urgent search for chargers. The gasoline engine simply takes over seamlessly, while the hybrid system continues optimizing efficiency in the background. And that tiny psychological difference changes everything. Because most drivers don't actually think about cars the same way enthusiasts or tech reviewers do. They think about convenience, routine, reliability. They want a vehicle that adapts to life, not the other way around. And Toyota understood that better than almost anyone else. The company wasn't trying to build the most futuristic machine on Earth. It was trying to build the least stressful ownership experience possible. That philosophy sounds boring until you compare it to what many EV owners quietly deal with every day. Tesla still dominates in pure acceleration. Some EVs are undeniably faster. BYD offers aggressive pricing and huge feature lists. But Toyota attacked a completely different category of fear: long-term uncertainty. What happens after 8 years? How expensive are repairs? What if charging infrastructure doesn't improve fast enough? What happens during road trips? What happens in countries where electricity systems still struggle? Most automakers treated those concerns like temporary obstacles. Toyota treated them like central design problems, and that decision may have completely changed the positioning of the RAV4, because suddenly, the RAV4 wasn't competing as just another hybrid. It started competing as an alternative to fully electric living itself. The SUV offered enough electric driving for everyday use while preserving the flexibility people already trusted. For many buyers, that balance felt smarter than committing fully to EV ownership, especially families, especially long-distance drivers, especially people outside major urban centers. And slowly, something unexpected started happening. The conversation shifted. For years, hybrids felt like a stepping stone, a temporary middle phase before the real future arrived. But now, some buyers started wondering whether hybrids might actually become the long-term solution for millions of people, not forever, but much longer than the industry originally expected. And if that happens, Toyota's entire strategy suddenly looks less conservative and more calculated. That's what makes the 2026 RAV4 plug-in hybrid so important, not because it's the fastest SUV, not because it's the cheapest, and not because it's the most futuristic. It matters because it exposes a possibility the industry tried to move past too quickly. Maybe consumers don't want dramatic lifestyle changes as fast as automakers assumed. Maybe they want gradual transitions, stability, flexibility. Maybe the future of transportation won't belong entirely to one technology after all, and if Toyota is right about that, then the company everyone thought was falling behind may have actually been positioning itself for the longest game of all. Because while everyone else raced toward the future as quickly as possible, Toyota spent years building something else entirely. A bridge, one designed for the millions of drivers who still aren't ready to jump. And the uncomfortable question now spreading across the industry is no longer whether Toyota can compete in the EV era. It's whether the EV era itself may take much longer than anyone expected. What makes this even more interesting is that Toyota didn't arrive at this strategy by accident. The company had already seen what happens when industries move too fast toward one solution before infrastructure, economics, and consumer behavior fully catch up. Inside Toyota, engineers reportedly believed the transition to electric vehicles would happen in stages, and that belief shaped everything about the new RAV4. Even the way the SUV feels on the road seems designed to remove friction from people who are curious about EV, but still hesitant to commit completely. The first time many drivers experience the RAV4 in electric mode, the reaction is almost strange. It feels quiet, smooth, and immediate in the same way people describe driving a full EV for the first time. There's no delay when accelerating, no aggressive engine noise. The SUV glides through traffic almost silently. For a moment, it gives drivers a glimpse of the electric future everyone talks about. But then something different happens. The anxiety never arrives. There's no mental countdown of remaining battery percentage. No calculations about charging stations. No worry about whether a charger will even work when you get there. The car simply continues driving like a normal SUV once the battery decreases. And psychologically, that may be Toyota's biggest advantage. Because range anxiety was never only about numbers. It was about uncertainty. Even drivers with EVs capable of hundreds of kilometers still plan differently before long trips. Charging becomes part of the journey itself. For some people, that's completely acceptable. For others, it quietly changes the ownership experience more than they expected. Toyota studied that behavior carefully. And instead of trying to convince consumers to adapt faster, it built a vehicle around existing habits. That's also why the RAV4's hybrid system feels unusually intelligent in real-world driving. The vehicle constantly shifts between electric power and gasoline power without forcing the driver to think about it. In traffic, the electric motors handle much of the workload. During highway acceleration, the engine and motors combine instantly for full performance. Even braking contributes energy back into the battery through regenerative systems. The SUV is always optimizing itself quietly in the background.